there's almost three stages if you're not investing massively in AI in terms of building tools like VCCP. Is there's a personal integration where you get people, creatives, to embrace it themselves. There's then the organizational stage, which comes next, where you change processes, etc. And then there's the client piece. Now the three can be weaved together, but you need, I would argue, to embrace the first two. But I guess basically for me, that's going to change at an individual level, a team level, an organizational level, pretty much everything we do in time, I think, as creative agencies. And like I say, I guess for me, I kind of see it relatively optimistically, but also I think it's like the wider debate about GenAI. I don't, for me personally, I think it does a lot of good in my own life and helps me with stuff. But in terms of the control, in terms of what it means for people's jobs and what it means for society, that's a kind of different thing that I'm not ignoring. That there's an ethical piece, there's an environmental piece, there's a legal piece, there's an intellectual property piece, there's what it's doing in terms of artists getting paid fairly. There's also, lots of AI training centers in places like Kenya where people are incredibly poorly paid and they're inputting the data. So it's not all great stuff. But what I did think might be interesting is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For me, 5 ways that I think kind of AI is going creatively. So I go 1. There's the LinkedIn AI, GenAI keyboard warrior that I mentioned. And we'll all have seen them. Lots of posts that say, I entered this and I got this. Clearly, AI will never take our jobs. And I kind of go 2 things. I can't remember the book. He said, looking for it. I might find it afterwards, or maybe it's downstairs. But there's a very good book on AI where one of the key points is this is the worst AI you'll ever work with. So if you're kind of critiquing it based on that, you're probably wrong. And then 2, as we all know, AI is only as good as the prompting. And I know that, you can get great work out of AI, but it's about the prompting. So that's kind of the keyboard warrior, which is the bit that I'm looking at when I look at GenAI adoption and what the barriers are in my doctorate. I guess the second one, and these are all people that I either know or have got to know, is a chap called Anton, who's a designer. Now when I get to creative identity, he is he's how should I put this? He's got a very strong personality, like some of the best designers. Being a designer is part of his identity. And if there was one person, because he's all about craft, I would have thought would reject AI and did for a long time, it's him. Now, I kind of think like that, whatever it is, 100 hours, thousands of hours rule. I think there is a bit of that goes on. He, through various circumstances, spent quite a lot of time working with Adobe Firefly. Now, he came out of that with a specific brand new sort of style of doing design lettering that brings to life emotions and the topic within it. And I've heard slides that bring it to life better than that, but trust me, it's really impressive. And so basically now where he's gone is, with just a scribble, like a stickman scribble and good prompting refined by ChatGPT, he can come up with graphics and designs that he probably couldn't have before and might not have before. And I think that's, for the cynics, for me, that's the opportunity. And he's just literally this week won a design award in Miami. So I kind of go, for people who are kind of poo-pooing where AI is going to go, somebody like Anton's another great example. Then the third sort of persona for me real person, somebody called Sherry Horowitz, and she's a bit of a mid-journey guru. And yet again, she was originally a poet. She studied in fine art, and she was originally a graphic designer. Now, what I find fascinating about her is she creates, and you'll find it on LinkedIn, incredible imagery on Midjourney. But her point to me is she couldn't do it if she didn't have the skills of understanding fine art, having been a poet for prompting, and understanding graphic design, or having done graphic design. And I think, when I contrast that with a kind of LinkedIn keyboard warrior, I think that's where I start to go, well, that is, we'll get into this whole debate, I'm sure, about what is creativity and is GenAI real creativity because it's derivative, etc. For me, that is creativity because she's bringing existing creative skills using GenAI as a creative partner. Now, just today, she's talking about now moving into film, bringing all those skills and trying out, not saying it's going to work, every stage of the process from script writing to final edit with an AI tool or GenAI tool for every stage. So yeah, again, for me, that's where it can go. And then penultimate one, chap called Carl, who I met a couple of weeks ago. I think what is interesting, don't know if anybody's seen this, but there's quite a lot of research about people with different skills, whether it's creative or in a profession. The biggest effect AI has is on people who are the least skilled, because it has a massive incremental difference to what they can deliver, versus people who are the most skilled. Sometimes it has a marginally negative effect on their capabilities when they work with AI. So this guy called Carl, I would say, he's probably early 20s. He's not got all the craft skills that I mentioned with Anton and Sherry. But the difference is he works in corporate communications. So he creates films for corporates. But he understands how to use GenAI to create content, to edit content, and also how to use avatars. And so he's literally mopping up in terms of getting business from clients and creating really good work. And yet he hasn't got the craft skills. So I still go, there's that bit of creative that can really have that leap up. And then the final one, I don't know how I kind of feel about this one, but I think for me, this is where it gets maybe a bit more worrying if I was a creative with lots of years of craft skills. And I did go to a conference where it was voiceover artists, actors, etc. And they hate AI. And I completely understand why, because they either see where it's going or they've been misused for training data like voiceover artists and haven't worked again with a particular brand. They've gone in for 2 days, done voiceovers and then realized that's their final gig because that's then become, whatever. Is somebody called John, who's a film editor, and he's got decades of film editing skill. I mean, I think you'd have to confess that some of it was in Midsummer Murders, so he should. Don't know how you feel about that, but anyway, but he has done things like Shetland, so I'll forgive him slightly. But how he sees it going is he'll probably get 10 to 20% of the work that he had before, because eventually, yeah, again, through GenAI, tools are going to be trained up to do the bulk of his work. And then he'll be the human finesse towards the end of the process. So for me, what I'm really looking at, and I tried to not go into doctorate mode, is what is going to drive meaningful adoption of GenAI by creatives. And for me, it's, the individual, things like creative identity, where you are on that spectrum I just talked about. It's the team, how it, there's a theory called distributed creativity that goes, creativity is as much about the group of people as it is the individual. So how is GenAI going to change like classic creative teams? I personally don't think there'll be any anymore, if I'm really honest. It's the first time I've said that. Certainly my view. Then what does it change about organizations? And I think it's going to totally change agencies in time. And maybe people have talked about it for 20 years. We'll move from that age-old debate about not charging for time, but charging for value. Because, time will become quite irrelevant. It'll be more about, well, there'll be less time needed, but it will be more about what value you bring with the humans you bring to AI outputs. I think it will change, like I said, it will change jobs, it'll change processes, it will change revenue models. But I think the big thing that I've seen through talking to everybody is that, the only breakthroughs that really come, and I think this is a challenge for a lot of people versus a keyboard warrior typology, is using it.